Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says security forces have foiled India's attempts to trigger sectarian conflict in Pakistan. Khan was addressing Gilgit-Baltistan's 73rd Independence Day parade in Gilgit. Khan said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is the most extremist and Hindu supremacist in India's history. In occupied Kashmir, Indian forces have martyred prominent freedom fighter Dr. Saifullah during a military raid in Srinagar. They also arrested a youth during the operation. 23 Kashmiris have been martyred by the occupation forces in October alone. Turkey says Azerbaijan has so far liberated 193 settlements from the Armenian occupation amid heavy clashes over the Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijan's defense ministry says Armenia has once again targeted civilian areas with artillery and missiles. It says a number of Armenian troops have been killed in retaliatory raids by the Azeri forces. Now over 1,100 people have been killed in the fighting that broke out on the 27th of September. The global number of coronavirus has topped 46 million with almost 1.2 million deaths. In the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has imposed a national lockdown in England as the country's cases crossed 1 million. India has reported nearly 47,000 cases and 470 fatalities overnight, raising the death toll to over 122,000. In Pakistan, 17 people have died overnight, taking the toll to 6,823. These were the top stories. News is coming in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says security forces have foiled India's attempts to trigger sectarian conflict in Pakistan. Khan was addressing the 73rd Gilgit-Baltistan Independence Day parade in Gilgit. Khan said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is the most extremist and Hindu supremacist in Indian history. The Premier said Muslims living in India do not have equal rights. He said the government gave provisional provincial status to Gilgit-Baltistan in line with UN resolutions. He paid rich tribute to the Gilgit Scouts who made sacrifices to liberate the region from the Dogra rule. Gilgit-Baltistan Governor Raja Jalal Hussain Maghpoon said the federal government is making serious efforts to bring this region in the mainstream. Meanwhile, in occupied Kashmir, Indian forces have martyred prominent freedom fighter Dr. Saifullah during a military raid in Srinagar. They also arrested a youth during the operation. Now, 23 people, including a woman, have been martyred by the occupation forces in October alone. The occupied valley has been under a curfew since India revoked its autonomy in August last year. Meanwhile, Turkey's defense ministry says Azerbaijan has so far liberated 193 settlements from the Armenian occupation. Over 1,100 people have been killed in the fighting over the Nagorno-Karabakh that broke out on the 27th of September. Azerbaijan said Armenian forces once again targeted its civilian areas with artillery and missiles. The Azeri Defense Ministry said a number of Armenian troops have been killed in retaliatory raids by the Azeri forces. Meanwhile, President Ilham Aliyev said Armenia has admitted defeat in the conflict by seeking security aid from Russia. Earlier, Russia pledged to provide military assistance to Yerevan if the fighting reached the Armenian territory. Moving on, Iran says it does not seek to compete with other existing peace efforts over the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. In an interview, Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said a temporary ceasefire in the ongoing conflict is unlikely. Zarif said Iran's plan aims to end the occupation of Azeri territories and underline the protection of civilians. He said ceasing hostilities and initiating dialogue with the help of influential countries are other proposals of the plan. Zarif said Iran is waiting for Azerbaijan and Armenia to share their viewpoints about its peace plan. Now, meanwhile, Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said Turkey will continue to support Azerbaijan against Armenian aggression. Now, in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has imposed a national lockdown in England. The country's COVID-19 cases has topped 1 million, with over 46,000 deaths. Now, the global number of coronavirus infections is nearing 46 million, with almost 1.2 million deaths. Details in this report.
The second wave of COVID-19 is devastating countries around the globe as governments struggle to save lives and livelihoods. The death rate per million infections in Latin America is now rising significantly. The US is going through an unprecedented surge, breaking the record for most daily cases twice this week. But President Donald Trump is adamantly pushing states to reopen schools amid surging cases across the country.
Get back to school. Open up this state, Governor. Open up this state. And don't take advantage of those ballots, Governor. Don't do it. Don't do it. We will terminate the virus with science, medicine, and groundbreaking therapies and cures.
With the coronavirus exploding in Europe, healthcare systems in the region are once again being tested to their limits. Austria, Portugal and Greece have announced new restrictions in an attempt to curb the spread of COVID-19. Protesters who came out against restrictions in Spain clashed with police as economic strife grips the country. In Italy, thousands gathered in Rome to ask the government to give workers a universal income to overcome the crisis.
If the government closes us, we need to receive an income. The government should give financial support to the people who have to choose whether to work or get sick. The best option would be to take care of the services that have been denied so far and not to delay the financial support again.
Meanwhile, for the first time since the pandemic started, Australia has reported 0 cases in the country over the past 24 hours. In India, the Health Ministry has reported nearly 47,000 cases and 470 fatalities overnight, raising the death toll to over 122,000.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 17 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, raising the death toll to 6,823. The Health Ministry says 977 people tested positive for the disease overnight. The ministry said there are over 12,500 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of over 333,000 countrywide cases, more than 314,000 have recovered. The ministry added over 145,000 infections have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported over 104,000 cases, while in the capital city, Islamabad, nearly 20,000 people have been infected so far. Moving on now, 3 policemen have been killed in an explosion in Afghanistan's western Herat province. Local officials say 2 others, including a civilian, were injured when a bomb detonated near a police checkpoint. A spokesperson for the police said the bomb was placed on a motorbike in the city of Herat. Eyewitnesses said dozens of shops and nearby houses were damaged in the blast. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the explosion. This comes as the Kabul administration and the Taliban discuss the mechanism of intra-Afghan talks in Doha. Now moving to Jerusalem, where thousands of protesters called on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to quit for the 19th straight week. The demonstrators cited Netanyahu's terrible handling of the COVID-19 crisis and corruption charges. Protesters gathered outside the Prime Minister's residence, blowing whistles, waving signs and flags. Police say they have arrested 6 demonstrators. Now, Israel is witnessing a rise in protests as COVID-19 cases in the country surge once again. The country is facing a recession as a result of the pandemic, with unemployment rate hovering above 11%. Moving on, clashes have erupted between protesters and police in the southern Iraqi city of Basra. This comes after security forces removed concrete walls and dismantled the protest tents. Authorities started clearing the road leading to local government offices. The road was closed since the mass anti-government protest erupted a year ago. Dozens of protesters gathered to prevent the removal of tents and threw stones at the security forces. Now, riot police fired tear gas and live ammunition in the air to disperse the crowd. Local security said some forces suffered light injuries while several protesters were also detained. Now, Algerians are voting on a revised constitution that has the regime hopes will finally neutralize a protest movement. President martyred and the powerful military pitched the new draft. The proposed reforms limit president and MPs to 2 terms and allow to create a new anti-corruption body. It will make the changes made after the protests brought an end to President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's 20-year rule. Prime Minister Abdelaziz Gerard has said the reforms will put Algeria on the right path after years of deviousness. To win the referendum, either the yes or no camp needs at least 51% of the vote. Now, over in New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's Labour Party has signed an agreement with the Green Party to form a government. In the October 17th general election, Ardern delivered the biggest victory for her party in half a century. Labour won enough seats to govern alone, but Ardern said she wanted to draw on shared goals and expertise on environmental and well-being issues. Under the agreement, the Greens are obliged to back the government over decisions made in their portfolios. Otherwise, they are entitled to take a different position on the issues.
This agreement is unlike any other. It does not require consensus to be formed. It allows the parties to take their own positions on issues where that is important, but offers to work together in other areas too. And for us, this represents the evolution of MMP.
And also, prior to the October election, the Labour Party was in a governing coalition, also with the Greens and New Zealand First. Now, moving on, in France, President Emmanuel Macron has condemned the growing calls for a boycott of French goods.
In an interview, Macron called the move unacceptable after the boycott campaign spread quickly in the Muslim world. Earlier this week, Macron made anti-Islam comments and accused Muslims of separatism. His remarks sparked a wave of criticism in France and beyond. But the president appeared to retract his position on the ongoing fierce debate about freedom of speech in France. He said the caricatures emerged from free and independent newspapers that are not affiliated with the government. A number of world leaders, including Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan, condemned Macron's statement.
Moving on, German Chancellor Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats Party has decided to hold its Congress session in the mid of January. The Congress is going to decide who will succeed Merkel as the leader of the party. In a tweet, CDU General Secretary Paul Ziemiak said the leadership of the Congress decided the new date after it was postponed due to the rise in COVID-19 cases. He said unity in the party is important for Germany, particularly in such difficult times. This comes amid rising concerns about party cohesion and discipline expressed by senior members. Meanwhile, Georgia's ruling party and a grouping of opposition forces have both claimed victory in Saturday's parliamentary elections. Rival exit polls showed contradictory results, sparking fear of political instability. The ruling Georgian Dream Party said it has won the elections for the 3rd time in a row, while exiled former President Mikhail Saakashvili claimed opposition parties scored a triumphal win. A pro-government exit poll said Georgian Dream led elections with 55%, but a pro-opposition exit poll suggested opposition parties garnered 52% of the votes. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, with the U.S. election less than 3 days away, President Donald Trump and Democratic rival Joe Biden have taken to the battleground states in the Midwest. Trump rallies in Pennsylvania as Biden targeted Michigan on their path to the 270 Electoral College votes needed to win the White House. Details in this report.
With pre-election voting at unprecedented levels and a raging pandemic, America is gearing up for an election unlike any other. Rivals Donald Trump and Joe Biden stepped up their incendiary rhetoric and scathing attacks in a last-ditch effort in swing states. Addressing a small rally in Newton, Pennsylvania, Trump mocked Biden for his criticism over COVID-19 response. Trump took aim at a recent Supreme Court decision allowing mail-in ballots postmarked by Election Day to be received later in Pennsylvania and North Carolina.
Horrible decision that they made. We're going to be waiting November 3rd is going to come and go, and we're not going to know, and you're going to have bedlam in our country, and you're going to have this period of 9 days or 7 days or whatever it is, and many bad things. Ballots are going to be, oh, we just found 10,000 ballots. Oh, that's good. We just found another 10,000. This is a horrible thing that the United States Supreme Court has done to our country. And I say it loud, and I say it proud.
Meanwhile, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden campaigned in Flint, Michigan, trying to sway undecided voters. Biden once again accused Trump of giving up in the fight against coronavirus, which has killed 230,000 Americans.
I can tell you this, we wouldn't have 9 million confirmed cases of COVID in this nation, over 230,000 deaths. We wouldn't be seeing a new record of cases. We're seeing right now 90,000 cases. Today, yesterday, 90,000 new cases. We wouldn't be by the way, 500,000 in just the past week. This guy tells us it's going away. Only thing that's gonna make it go away if he goes away.
Opinion polls show Biden leading Trump by 9 points in Michigan and by 5 percentage points in Pennsylvania. A record 90 million Americans have voted early in the presidential election.
Well, now in Canada, 2 people have been stabbed to death near the Parliament Hill area of Quebec City. Officials say 5 others wounded have been transported to a hospital, but there is no word on their condition. At a press briefing, a police spokesperson said the motivation behind the attack is yet unknown. It said the police have arrested the suspected man and taken him to the hospital for evaluation. Police have instructed the citizens to stay indoors despite the arrest of the suspect. Now, Saudi Arabia has allowed international pilgrims to perform Umrah after a 7-month pause due to COVID-19. Deputy Minister of Hajj and Umrah, Amr al-Madar, said the pilgrims will have to isolate for 3 days after their arrival. He said pilgrims of 50 years old or younger will be tested for COVID-19 and any cases detected will be closely monitored. Al-Madar said pilgrims will be allowed a 10-day stay in the country. Earlier this year, the Hajj pilgrimage was limited to residents of Saudi nationals, while international pilgrims were banned due to COVID-19. Now, the death toll from the earthquake in western Turkey has risen to 58, with over 800 injured. Authorities say they have pulled a man alive from the debris after 33 hours. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan visited the site of collapsed buildings in the Aegean port city. Mayor of the city said a mother and her 2 children were pulled alive from the debris after 18 hours. He added around 180 people are still trapped under the rubble. The Disaster and Emergency Management Authority say there have been 833 aftershocks, with 40 more powerful than 4 magnitude. Now, at the 3rd World Laureates Forum in Shanghai, scientists from around the globe have called for international cooperation to handle global problems. They said coordination is needed to improve computing power and handle the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, more than 300 scientists, including 61 Nobel Prize laureates, participated in the forum. American structural biologist Raymond Stevens outlined a possible path for scientists to make more achievements.
I became a scientist because we cooperate around the world. And so their message, which I very much agree with, is that we need to make sure science stays international, basic science, that we share observations. The pandemic, COVID-19, has been a wonderful example of that. We should be working together to battle this virus, not each country by itself.
Now, in business stories, most Middle East equities have declined as traders reduced risk before the US election. Investors' concerns grew over rising pandemic lockdowns and declining oil prices. Leading the losses, Dubai's DFM General Index dropped 1.5%. Saudi Arabia's Tadawul Al Share Index has fallen 0.5% further after sliding 7% last week. Saudi Aramco shares also slipped 0.5%. Equities benchmarks in Kuwait retreated over 1%, while bourses in Abu Dhabi shed 0.5%. Bucking the trend, stocks in Doha, Qatar have inched above the flat line. Meanwhile, Pakistan's Aleem Dar has set the world record of supervising the highest number of one-day internationals. He is officiating the second ODI between Pakistan and Zimbabwe today in Rawalpindi. Dar broke South African Rudy Curtin's record when he stepped out for his 210th match in the format. He already holds the record for officiating in 387 international matches as well as in 132 test matches. In a statement, Dar said it's a matter of great honour and that he had never thought he would get this far. Now in the English Premier League, Chelsea cruised to a comfortable 3-0 victory against Burnley at Turf Moor. Hakim Ziyech netted his first Premier League goal for the Blues in the first half. Defender Kurt Zouma doubled the advantage just after the hour mark. Minutes later, the third goal by Timo Werner put the game past Burnley. Chelsea have risen to fourth while Burnley continue to search for their first win. In another fixture, Manchester City beat Sheffield United by 1-0 at Bramall Lane. Kyle Walker marked his 100th Premier League appearance for City with a goal against his former club. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest update, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.